Glenn, your microphone.
Okay.
Now, just give me a
All right.
second. Let me just see everything over again. Okay, Glenn, all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, it's a privilege to talk in front of all these Latin American philatelists. I really do feel privileged, and thank you for the opportunity. The second thing I'd like to say is because I don't speak Spanish, some of my pronunciations are going to be wrong. Please correct it or laugh. I'm happy with either way, but hopefully I've got the written word down so you can understand it. Okay. All right, so just a bit of an introduction for those who don't know me. I'm currently the chair of the 5th Aero Philatelic Commission. I started exhibiting seriously in 2000. The collections that I exhibit at the moment are mainly Nicaraguan. I'm part of the Nicaraguan study group, so Nicaraguan postal stationery, a Nicaraguan airmail. I do Nicaraguan traditional in the CBEC and the gold currency overprint. I also do a one framer on the 400th anniversary, and I do have the Waterloo official one frame. I do Thailand postal stationery. I call it Siam because it is that classic period. As far as postal history, I do Western Australia postal history of World War II. I call them the forgotten heroes because they were ready to defend the Western Australian coastline from the Japanese invasion that didn't happen. But, a few 100,000 to stop off millions, they were going to be very brave. And of course, what I'm covering today, the Bolivian revenues. I'm also an international judge at FIP and FIAP level. I'm a national judge here in Australia. I'm on the FIAP board. I'm one of the board members. I'm also the international officer for the Australian Philatelic Federation. I'm a fellow of the Royal of London and the Royal of Victoria. I've been collecting since I was 17, but probably more serious in my mid-40s when I had a bit of spare money. And my occupation is medical imaging. I've been involved for 43 years. Just to let you know where I live, this is a map of Australia. It's about the same size as the United States. There is a misconception with some of the people in the Northern Hemisphere that to fill out the bottom of the globe, they've made Australia look bigger, but in fact, we are quite large. So I'm from the west coast, so you see on the western side where the Indian Ocean is. Perth is our capital city, and I live in Mandurah, about an hour and a quarter drive south of Perth. And this is just a map of the area, and you can see Mandurah, the Peel Inlet. This is the largest inland water there is in Western Australia. So it's really a water paradise. I mean, Aldo would love it here because you can go surfing out in the ocean and paddleboarding in the inlet and the rivers. So we think we're blessed over here in Mandurah. So just an aerial view looking over the city. You can see the river going out to the estuary there. You can see we've got marinas. And it's pretty low density population, so very few multi-story buildings. One of the things we pride ourselves, we have more canals, private canals dug out than there is in Venice, and we can see them. So this is a sort of a bit further out view. As you can see, heading south, on the right-hand side is the Indian Ocean, on the left-hand side is that large amount of water. And my property is just on 200 metres from the coastline, so we're pretty privileged there. What I plan on covering today is Bolivian revenues. I'm going to talk just a little bit on the literature that I use. I'm going to then talk about stamp paper. I say from the 1600s, but typically from 1800s onwards, covering three areas: the Spanish colonial area, the Bolivian independence area, and also what we call states, but the departments. Then the Condor adhesive stamp, which is the first stamp of Bolivia that they use for both stamps and for fiscal, for revenue. Then the dedicated revenue stamps the documentary series first and second adhesive issue. And finally, I'm going to stop at the coat of arms surcharges. So what the main catalogue that I use is the Hinchley and Clive Ackerman catalogue they put together. It was a job. It's better than nothing, but there's a lot of inaccurate information in there, and I'm not too sure who's going to make the time. But as I go through, I'll just point out some of the things that I've seen. I was able, Bolivia do have a lot of their documents scanned and you can get access to. So I've been able to download some of these documents to get the regulation. I have translated it through Google Translation. So some of the translation might not be exact, but please just bear with me. So the first part is I'm going to talk about the stamp paper that they use. I think you call it papel salado or something. So you can see my Spanish is very poor. So I'm going to call it stamped paper. This is the document that I started looking at first. It's around the 1881s where it explains what each of the classes are used for. And I just want to go through that to give you an indication on why they're using stamp paper for revenue. So part of it is that I think the Spanish government worked out that it could generate income by putting everything through the courts. So the use of stamp paper is mandatory in all court proceedings, basically. And whether it's political, whether it's religious, military, or if it's government, then all the things that they need to do. So stamp paper is really a great way of generating income for the government. So what they've done is they've generated it by each stamp paper being a class, and the class is for various parts in the court system. So if we start off with the first class, it's 5 centavos, and this is used in any court case where it's really small claims and whether it's written or verbal, and it doesn't exceed 160 I think you say Bolivianos, or I'll call them Bs in the moment. Or if you're formally declared poor or as a criminal trial, it can be done on the first class paper. Second class at 10 centavos is for actually trials where there is money involved between 160 and 400 Bs inclusive. And in matters of general administration for government, regardless of gender authority, direct, with or without distinction of any persons. So I hope that translation is reasonable. The third class, where we start to get a bit more sort, it's in all lawsuits exceeding 400 Bs and anything to do with public deeds or anything to do with contracts. In summary of trial possessions, trial inventories, or dividing up of property. It also says in all special powers. I still haven't worked out what that means, but it's an area that's for third class. And for certificates issued for national ministries, for acts of parliament and documents abroad to be executed, and certificates for college and university. So if you get a degree, you also have to get it on a stamp paper. Also, your death, marriages, and birth certificates all need to go through the courts. If you're using wholesale, there's a whole heap of information there for refunds. In policies or permits for free pass, in the export of policies and protocols for notary and scribing. So as you can see, again, for 20 centavos, there's a lot that goes through the courts. On the fourth class, this is anything that goes through the Supreme Courts. So no matter what it is, criminal or civil, if it goes through the Supreme Courts, then it's going to need to be done on fourth class paper, and anything that's aired in front of the Supreme Court. So I think that's just stopping people from using the Supreme Courts for just anything. Fifth class, now we're starting, it's more on registration of ships and customs, rivers and ports, in bonds for treasury, and for just executing documents by the courts, whatever that might be. And finally, on the sixth class, this is 2 Bolivianos to be used, is requests for proclamation of marriage, if you want to get married, for wills, for power of attorney, for diplomas in various professional matters, and in testimonies. So you can see there's a whole range of classes that get to be used for this stamp Salado. So I'm just going to go through a few that I have in my collection. This is the earliest one that I have. I call it from the Spanish colonial period. It's issued in 1679. It's actually in pretty good condition. And its value is 2 maravedis. I can't really pronounce that, but that just gives you an idea on what a mint copy looks from back then. So more recently in Bolivian times, so now I'm looking at, it's still Spanish colonial, and this paper was issued in 1812. As you can see, it's originally, I'm sorry, I'm just moving you guys around so I can see my actual point. So this stamp paper initially was 1806 to 1807. It got revalidated again in 1810 to 1811, and further validation between 1812 and 1813. So typically these stamp papers were issued for just a 2-year period, but in various cases they do revalidate them. Again, another one for the Spanish colonial period. This is 4th class, as you can see. Just moving you guys again. 4th class. This is value is 1, and I haven't seen this before. This cortillo, which is about a quarter of a real, and this is really for a deceased estate for an extension of time. It was used on 1816 and 17 paper. Issued on the 27th of June, 1816. Another 4th class paper, this time a quarter of a cadillo, for a receipt of goods on 1820 paper. Trying to work out hang on a sec, I know what to do. All right, I'm good. All right, so this was issued in the 18th of March, 1820, Royal Customs, as you can see on there. Now, Bolivia gained independence in 1825, so this is my first one I have as an independent period of 1835. It's a 5th class. It's an affidavit asking a judge to intercede. It's on 1835, 1836 issued paper, and this was issued in La Paz on the 12th of March, 1835. This is another independent. This is a mint example that I have from 1872. This is a 5th class, and it does say national on there, so that's a nice copy. So in 1882, the Bolivian government asked the American banknote company to start producing high quality stamp paper. And the values they wanted was to match those classes with 5, 10, 20, and 50 centavos, along with 1 and 2 Bolivianos. As you can see, these are composite die proofs. I got these from Clive Ackerman. They're what we call composite die proofs, so they would have the same values or different values all on the sheet, and they're all done in black. So you can see there's 5 centavos, 10 and 20 centavos, and 2 Bolivianos. These are now die proofs. As you can, or you might not be able to see, but in each of the die proofs, the die are numbered C-46, 45, and 44. Again, this is a composite die proof, and these are all out of the American banknote archives. These are now plate proofs which were color trials. As you can see, the colors are listed, and then the first class, second class, and all that are inscribed in the stamps. And each of these colors are colors that have been described by Ackerman in his catalog. So I'm not too sure whether these are American banknote colors or whether these are just colors that they've chosen to describe each of these. This is a specimen that's come out, so it's multicolored. It gives the government an idea on what it's going to look like. You can see the word specimen on here. You can see how the colors fade. The 4 zeros is where the numbering system for each one of these needs to be accounted for. The class is going to be put on the actual paper, and then this is just showing a blend of colors to give you an indication of what the final product's going to look like. So as you can see, again, a 2-year period between 1882 to 1883. So that's the validated date. This is a used copy that I've got, and as you can see here, someone's actually written 1885 just to confirm that this was a bit later. I'm not too sure what these manuscripts are, but of course, additional stamps have been, revenue stamps have been put on here because this has been a court case for minor, and it doesn't exceed 160 Bs. This is a second class one. You can see it's 10 centavos. Up here is the number that you can see for each time they produce one, the number would click over. Again, the 2-year dates there, and it also has another adhesive put on here. Now the departments can also were producing their own, but in this particular issue, the national stamps were put on here and here. So these were now national stamp papers. So they were what we call upgraded. So as you can see, the individual departments could produce their own stamp paper. But in this case, these have been converted into national stamp papers. So in 1905, American banknote again produced another series. As you can see, each of the classes are listed on each of them. You can see 10 centavos, 20, and 30. So that's all the different classes. It was done on with arms watermark paper, and you may just barely make out that there's an embossed seal on the right-hand side of each of these. So here's a used copy of the third class, 30 centavos. It's a review of salary payment documents. It was issued in 1905, 1906 paper, and it's stated 1905 used in La Paz, sorry. This is an index card showing the dies of both the headings for each of those and the actual the figure that they're going to use on each of the 1906 paper issues. So I've said here that the following, you'll see that the number 622 refers to the actual order number when they're ordering these printing numbers. So as you can see here, again, these are 3 specimens out of the archives. You can see here it says F622, the order number. It says 622 up here. And you can see that each of them have that embossed seal on them. And these are Bolivianos. So again, 7, 9, and 10 classes. So by this time there was 10 classes of paper, going right up to 50 Bolivianos. Again, specimens from the archives. So this is showing usage of the second class 20 centavos stamp paper. That's agreement between the Minister of War concerning military service. Often if you're discharged or enlisted, then that's done through the courts as well. This is on the 1906 issued paper, second class, dated the 21st of February, 1906. So the first stamp and fiscal use produced in Bolivia was the condors, quite a famous stamp in Bolivia. So 4 of these initially were used for the fiscal and postal usage: 5 centavos, 10, 50, and 100. It says in Stanley Gibbons, which unfortunately us Commonwealth people use a lot of, that they issued the second issue wasn't used fiscally, but we seem to have known copies, and I'll show you one. I saw Martha's Bolivian revenue collection in Essen last year, a fantastic collection, and she goes right into depth for plating of each of these condor stamps, etc. So I'm not going to do too much on that. I think if you've seen any of her collection, you can see a great amount of work that she has done on that. So here just showing, because it's so well researched, that I can pretty much just plate, no matter what fiscal stamp's been used with condors, the actual plating position. So you can see here on 5 centavos, position 45 and 46 from the original plate, 10 centavos, position 20, and 50 centavos, position 11 and 12, 16 and 17 in that block of 4. And there's just 3 known, and this is also from the Ackerman collection. So here's usage of the 5 centavo adhesive, paint a simple agreement. It's updated on a 1 Bolivian stamp paper. It's a civil grant document from the 25th of August, 1869 in La Paz. Here's showing use of the 50 centavo adhesive for a simple agreement. So we also have the 5 centavos there for notary fees. Both of them completed. The 5 centavos is position 68 on the original plates, and with the 3rd retouch, and the 50 centavos position 2, and this is on the 5th class paper, which is a value of 2 reales, as you can see just up here. And this is from 1867. So here's use of the 100 centavo adhesives. It's actually strip of 3 plus a single that's been applied, paying 1% of the agreement document for the sale of land, which was 400 pesos. And this was validated on the 11th of March, 1868. So the Bolivian government now has decided to issue fiscal stamps solely for the use for fiscal stamps, and commissioned the American Banknote Company in 1866 to produce a series of fiscal stamps in 1867. As you can see, 5, 10, 50, 100 and 500 centavo stamps were issued in this method. So this was to supersede the condor adhesive. It was intended for use solely on legal documents, and they were produced in various colours. You can see on the left-hand side over 1.5 million for 5 centavos to 8,500 centavos. So it gives you a feel on each of the stamps, that quantity that needed to be produced. So this is a document to ABN Co, asking them to produce those 5 values in sheets of 100. It does suggest that have an oval-like stamp, the same size as the postage stamps of Canada. It wanted the actual figure of justice as in the Canadian law stamps, and it had the denominations in four corners and, of course, centavos printed on the bottom. So that's the original order from the government. That's out of the ABN code archives. This is what they called an index card. So everything the American banknote did produce, they would put a sample of the dies and the color trials on a card and document it, and then put it in a grey filing cabinet. They're all this standard size, and you can. I've purchased quite a few of these index cards to get more information off it. So you can see here the die, and you can see they've put it on top of each of these, was numbered 589. Now, this was 1867. This was a random die numbers the American banknote archives, American Banknote Company produced in the 20s, and Rostow did a paper on that. The American Banknote Company was slowly buying up other printers, and they had a big storage area of dies. So the auditors came in and renumbered all the dies, so they just had consecutive numbering. So this new number, 25715, is the next sequence that these dies were in. Some of the index cards have it typed on, and you got to remember they're typing this on a lot further down the track. And sometimes you'll just see a penciled note in the index card. An interesting side is they put the word blue here, and there probably was proposed to print a color trial in blue as well, but the accepted color for the 5 centavos was black. Here's use of that first documentary issue, the 5 centavos. There's 3 of them here paying a simple fee of 10 centavo and a notary fee of 5 centavos. The 5 centavo stamps have the word cancel struck across them. So this is to say that this is all paid for. This is a testament distribution document, 3rd of July, 1869. I like this one. It's got a strip of 5 stamps from the bottom left-hand corner, as you can see, the imprint blocks here. But what really impressed me was this "Viva la Union Americana." So obviously that must have been the new chant that was happening in South America, was sticking together, I guess. It was the chant. Again, impressed embossed seal in here. This is just a loan agreement and paying the basic fee of 50 centavos. It's also of the class 5, and this is the value is 2 reales, 1868. This is a 50 centavo sunken die proof. As you can see, they've penciled the new die number. The original die number is actually in the die proof, and this has been written on. And as you can see, it's exactly the same size as an index card. So many of the American die proofs were index cards, just as stories of as a record of what. And so really, there's only one of these known. 50 centavo adhesive was put on here. So this is paying the notional fee on here. This is actually a death certificate for 12th of September 1868, and on, again, 5th class paper. It's another stamp paper that has 5 of the 100 centavos on, plus the 10 centavos. This is really paying 5.1 pesos to cover the court costs and notary fees. It was a land dispute of 400 pesos. and this was on the 4th of December 1869. And this shows very early usage of these stamps. The 500 centavos, as you can see on the right-hand side of the three, paying the fee here, and the other stamps paying the notary fee. This is a bill of sales from 1868, again on fifth class stamp paper. Here we're showing two of these fiscal stamps used as postage. There's not a lot of these around, and it's unusual for fiscal stamps to be used as postage in the early years, but they were authorized in one of the provinces in 1884, and later on in 1893. So there doesn't appear to be any authorities before these dates, but there is at least some record that they could be used for postage. And here's showing 10 centavo paying the inland letter rate. So the previous one also paid the inland letter rate. So 1883, the American Banknote Company was asked to produce another series, slightly larger stamps, and covering all 10 classes. So they've done that quite well. Centavos are die proof, so you've got 1 and 2 here, and as you can see, you have the numbers 1, you have the letter describing 1, and you should also have each of the classes. This is the first class, second class, etc. So these, again, the original die proof number was C244 and 245 by the American Banknote Company, later on renumbered. And you can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots of centavos, and then Bolivianos also right up to the 10th class. Sorry, the 8th class. One of the things they found difficult is in the centavos being all the same color, was a bit difficult for the users. Again, index card showing the 2 5 Bolivianos die proofs in 2 different colors. The die was C54. You can see penciled here 25787, and someone scribbled on here wrong color. So this color was never to be issued. So this is the actual color that they use for that stamp. This is an interesting find that I got, where these are out of a archived ledger book, and what's happened is they've taken out 4x4, 16 stamps out of a sheet. They've removed one, always in this particular corner, and it's signed on the paper that it's stuck to, excuse me, Mr. Theo Freeland, who was the secretary of the American Banknote Company. And then they've gone and drilled holes in each of these stamps, so not to be used. The purpose of doing this, I don't know, but I have one for each of the values. In the Bolivianos values, because they're slightly larger, it's obviously just 12 stamps. Again, this is the stamps missing. It's been signed by the secretary. It's dated 12th of January 1891. So I have no idea why he did that, but that's come out of the American Banknote Archive Ledger book. So this is just showing usage of 5 and 20 centavo on a transfer deed acknowledgement, paying the notary fee. This was 1892 in La Paz on the 23rd of February. This is also due to the missing low value postage stamps that they use revenue stamps every now and then. Again, seems like that this department was low on stamps. This is paying the 10 centavo inland rate. Again, we then had shortages of fiscal stamps, so they took the postage stamps, the ARM series, overprinted a timber for need for fiscal. This was done twice. So in 1887, the 1 and 2 centavo related issues were overprinted and used for fiscal, and in 1890, the 1 centavo used with line perforation was overprinted timber as well, and that was issued again by the American Banknote Company. Showing use of the centavo related issue. There's 20 of them. Has a greenish blue overprint. It's paying the notary fee, and this is the 24th of February 1893. This is showing both the 2 and the 1 centavo related adhesive stamps. It's a declaration. The 10 centavos paying the notary fee, and this was January 1893. And now we're showing the 1 centavo with the perforation, green overprint, and this is just a receipt paying a simple receipt duty, 22nd of February 1892. So that's pretty much everything I want to go through. I'm very happy to go back on any of these items and answer any questions. So thank you very much for listening to my description of Bolivian revenues.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Excellent presentation. Perfect. Now,
Congratulations.
Congratulations, very nice. So if any of you have any questions, there we have Heinz.
Oh, Glenn, thank you very much. It's really a very nice presentation. I like that you have shown this to all of us, because it's really interesting and not common to show this kind of material here. So only some few comments. It would be interesting to say that the sealed paper from the 19th is a sheet who was folded. So 4 pages are one thing. This means that the imprint was made 2 times on the paper.
Yes.
And if you have the open paper, one is here,
Yeah.
and the next one is here. So you have to put the paper 2 times on the machine for having one document. Obviously, you can use them separating this if you will use one.
Yeah.
But if the document is larger, you can use this as 4 pages. And if you see your documents, the specimens from the American banknote, where with the imprint specimen, you can see that.
Yep. All right. I need to explain that on my thing. Thank you very much for that.
It's interesting to give this.
Is this just for Bolivian or all stamp paper for the independent colonies?
For the papers made by American banknote. Chile has one case in 1899, 1900.
Yeah.
The only one with 10 classes.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Diego.
Yes, thank you, Mauricio. Glenn, excellent presentations. Congratulations for the quality of the talk and the material presented. As an observation, I would like to know the equivalence of the Bolivian peso from that time to that of today, to have an idea of the cost of the papers and the transactions that the Bolivians made it with this kind of stamps, if it's possible or not.
Yeah, I think we can come up with a value, but I mean, one of them was a fee for a land transaction of 400 pesos. So I mean, land's expensive. So 400 Bolivianos or 400 pesos, and then 1% of that was the fee. Again, I think that they are quite expensive. But typically then they use the 5 and 10 centavos for postage. So I think from the 1800s to the 1900s, there was probably quite a bit of changing in the currency. I mean, the fact that you rename pesos, I think most countries did rename their pesos when they were worth nothing. So that's an interesting exercise. I will look into that and see what I can find. But thank you for that, Diego.
Okay, no problems.
Hernan?
Hello, Glenn. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. The other day I had some problems with the microphone, but today I'm working fine. Thank you. Very impressed. I'm all from Costa Rica. I also collect revenue stamps, but from my own country, Costa Rica. And certainly that material that you show today is something that you don't see every day. So congratulations for that beautiful collection and those documents. Some of those documents are incredibly precious. My question has to do with your presentation. Initially, you show like a list of all the different collections that you have made in the past. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe about 20 collections. I don't know, quite a number of collections. Most of those related to the postal part. So,
Yeah.
and at the end of the list, as always corresponds to revenue stamps, you put the Bolivian revenue stamp. So, my question is, if this is something that you started recently, let's say, and why is that you got that interest in revenue stamps, and what is your experience? How do you like to collect revenue stamps compared
Okay.
to the postal collection that you have?
I think that is an excellent question, and Aldo will probably understand more than anyone else. But once you start judging international, if you want to get a Guernsey, you need to be able to judge in several disciplines. And you saw that mainly mine was postal stationery, postal history, and postage stamps. Well, postal history and traditional, everyone does that. So rarely does that give you an opportunity. So about 6 years ago, just before COVID and just before Brian Morehouse died, I decided I would put together a revenue exhibit. Now, I do have Nicaraguan revenue stamps, but no documents. Almost nothing survived from Nicaragua. Everything got sold, and I don't know what to do there. And I knew Clive Ackerman through correspondence on other things that we were doing with actual revenue stamps. So when Brian had his collection up for sale, I felt I wanted to do revenues. B, I wanted something that had Clive Ackerman, because we're only custodians of our own collection. We got to pass them on. So we're also purchasing more famous philatelists. So it is relatively new. I mean, the Nicaraguan stuff, I've been seriously 25 years collecting, but Bolivian revenues is just 5. And you are right, it's very, very difficult to find that material. I'm glad I've got all the archive material. Now I've got to find all the documents to meet up with each of the archive material. But it's a very interesting time. I have been warned by a few revenue judges, do not take that material to Bolivia because it may get confiscated, because some of that stuff should never have left their archives. So I might bring it to Uruguay, but I'm still worried it's so close to Bolivia that for me, maybe the Nicaraguan stuff is what I'll have. But yeah, so partly 1, interest in revenues, 2, interest in becoming a revenue judge, 3, my fascination for Latin American countries, because everyone in Australia collects British Commonwealth, and that's boring. And you guys have far more interesting stamps, so that's why I do that. But thank you very much for that question.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you. I fully agree. Just small comment. The good thing about revenues, it is that there's so many things yet to be discovered. So it is easy just to find like good findings, and every now and then you can find very interesting things, even on eBay and things. So it's very nice because it is almost like unexplored field, and there's so much to contribute on that. So congratulations for being a judge in that particular field, even though we're always taken to the last corner of any exhibition house, but I'm sure revenues going to start slowly catching up. Thank you.
Agreed.
Miguel.
Congratulations, Glenn. Voy a seguir en castellano porque desgraciadamente mi inglés no es bueno.
Si quieres, Miguel, tú hablas y yo traduzco para Glenn.
Perfecto.
Okay.
Quería mostrar una pieza que me hizo acordar algo que mostró Glenn.
So Miguel is going to show us a piece that reminds him of something, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Esta prueba
Show this proof
de la provincia de Buenos Aires,
from the province of Buenos Aires.
7, una emisión realizada justamente por la National Bank Note.
Which was made by National Banknote Company.
Vos mostraste una pieza muy similar.
He said that you show something similar to this.
Y creo que eso me convenció de que esta también es auténtica.
And so looking at the one that you show, he thinks that this one is also legit.
Yes, definitely.
Definitivamente sí, Miguel.
So it's an archival piece from the printer. They keep as a record. So they keep their die proofs, they keep their essays, they keep their plate proofs. And when they print a sheet, they don't always keep the whole sheet. They'll just take a section and then they'll either glue it, gum it down, or drill holes in it as a record. So it's really a record of the final product. So it's actually a very important part of the story. And if you don't have that part, I think you're not telling the whole story. So it's a good find. Well done.
Dice Miguel que copia de archivo que no necesariamente guardaban todo y que sí, eso es parte de todo el proceso. Había algo más que ahí después te lo traduzco y te lo mando. Miro la mano. Fernán, again, you raise your hand.
No, sorry.
Okay.
I take it down. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Glenn, I do have first a comment. Very nice, very interesting presentation, the one that you show us today. Regarding those two stamped paper that you show us, the ones unused, can you tell us a little bit, well, if it's the whole paper? I know in those times they were very large pieces of paper. It's folded. Can you tell us a little bit on how that was, how you found that? Which is, it's not common to see, at least in the case of my country, in Honduras, we don't see much often stamp paper unused from so back. You usually see them as used pieces. Can you tell us more about those uncirculated stamped papers?
Yep. So both of those came from Brian Morehouse. So I assume he's got them out of collections. They're all folded. And I have a habit, I don't want to refold. So however it's folded from whoever, I've mounted it on my exhibit as per the way it's folded. I'm happy to pull it out and unfold it to check on things, but I won't create a new fold. And if I've got I've got some more recent full sheets mint from American Banknote Archives that aren't folded, so probably I won't display them because I just don't want to fold them. So I'm one of those collectors that if someone else has folded it on their behalf, I'll buy it like that. But as far as mint copies, I mean, that early one, the first one that I show, I've had more people interested in purchasing that one off me than probably my whole collection. So I know that people are chasing that one. The one that's, I think it's 1871, one of the more independent Bolivian ones, that's in extremely good condition as well. I do have a couple that I show that have been burnt, and I don't know whether they were meant to be destroyed and someone has rescued them, because I mean it's not like crash mail or anything. So and they're my only other mint copies. Everything else is documented. So, and typically I don't know where I'm going to find more of those. So that first and second documentary period, Heinz will tell you, is I'm weak in documents. I've got all the archive material, I've got everything, but just finding those documents from that 1881 onwards period is pretty difficult. I know that Bernie has Ecuadorian stamp paper exhibit, and he said he can do 20 frames of it. So I don't know where he got all that stuff from. So maybe it's an archive that wasn't legitimately received. But anyway, these things happen. We, as collectors, we try to get what we can. But yeah, those two mint copies, quite precious to me. And you're right, I haven't seen any others from Bolivia. I had a look at Martha's. She shows no mint at all, but she's very heavy in the condors. I mean, she must have a bit of money, because she must show every plate position and everything in her collection. Very envious, very envious. So I wouldn't even attempt to try to reproduce that period. That's why I just briefly show that they were used, and then when the American banknotes started producing official fiscal stamps.
Perfect, thanks. Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mauricio. Glenn, very good presentation. I am very surprising about your collecting Bolivia. I met you first time, I think, in Rio de Janeiro when you made your jury examination. I think was Rio de Janeiro, if I'm not wrong. Or
we were somewhere, but I don't think it was Rio de Janeiro. But anyway,
yeah, okay. So I am very surprised that you are collecting Bolivia revenues. The question is, I have a collection of revenues. I'm trying to mount it now. I'm starting to mount it to exhibit now. But the thing is, a lot of covers that are franking with revenue stamps I have in my emergency collection, because was lack of postal stamps and they used the revenue stamps to send some letters inside the country. And my heart was in that collection, in that postal history collection. And now I saw in your collection some covers, private covers with revenue stamps. And I thought that's not allowed to show in the revenue section, that kind of covers. And I am thinking right now, why not? That's also a part of the revenue stamps that was helping the postal system in order to send private covers. So I saw a couple of covers in your collection now. What do you think about showing in the revenue section postal revenue stamps using in the postal rate with regular covers?
Okay, that's a great question. So there are times where fiscal stamps are used postally as an emergency. There is either a decree or something that backs that up. So that's important. And so I just show one page of examples where that is. I will not show half a dozen covers, even though I have, because I'm really just saying there was an emergency. They did use those stamps there, but I'm not going to document a whole range of them, because then I'm interfering with both traditional and postal history collectors. So it's part of the story. I totally agree. Part of the story, and you do need to put it in. But if you do it in depth, you're going to get penalized. We might need to ask Heinz what his thoughts are on that. But I think even when mine been judged and they say, do you really need them in there? And I do, because I just want, but I have to find that documentation. That's what I've got to get my hands on.
All right, thank you.
Aldo.
Heinz, what was
Sorry.
your feeling on those showing letters with fiscal stamps?
It's very rare here in Ecuador. It's very rare,
Yep.
yeah. Are very hard to find those kinds of stamps, those
Yep.
kind of letters, yeah. It's because most of the stamps was overprinted, which were postal or something like that, and
Yep.
they are already postal. Revenues with the surcharge postal or for aerial or whatever. But the revenue as issued is very difficult to find on cover.
Yep.
Aldo.
Hello, Glenn again. Can you hear me? Yes, no?
Yes, hear you. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Well, again, congratulations for that nice presentation. Frankly, some other friends said here, I know that you collect Nicaraguan stamp, but I never realized that you collect Bolivian. Well, that's good. That's good. Now, regarding the stamped paper of Bolivia and the first issues of Bolivia that were what we call in Spain, in Spanish, fisco-postal stamps, the Rocondor's issues, fisco-postal. Well, I have seen on the first pages that some stamped papers with specific values where other stamps, revenue stamps, are affixed to the stamped paper. This material, well, this stamp obviously is to pay an extra fee, not a postage because it's a revenue, right? It's an extra fee. Okay. How do you show this in an exhibition? Because how to manage this for you as exhibitor?
Yeah.
Because it's not easy sometimes to decide where to put this material, or in the issued stamps or issued revenue stamp, or in the stamped paper, because it's a stamped paper that was used with another stamp to pay an extra amount. So it's not the basic fee, the basic purpose of the stamped paper.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. So basically, it's in the treatment. If I treated it as stamped paper, I would have to put it in chronological order, and then whatever the revenue stamps are added, I wouldn't be discussing too much on the archive material, etc. I'll be concentrating on the stamp paper. You are correct. I show one stamp paper that the sale of block of land for 400 pesos, and 1% is what we call stamp duty. So revenues needed to be collected by the government, and so they put that 1% in stamps. But yeah, on treatment, you always have to be careful, because one of the judges has told me, get rid of your stamp paper and concentrate on the issues. Well, that means I would have nothing to show as usage except for the two covers as letters, because they're all on stamped paper. I could do just the American banknote side of it, but then again, they produce stamp paper as well as the fiscal stamps. So it's very tricky. I'm still developing it, and because now, thank you that you've given me 85 plus for my exhibit, Heinz. I have to make it 8 frames, and I'm looking at, do I put more stamp paper in the front before the documentary issues, or do I extend the scope out and start including the consular issues of 1906, etc., which sometimes you widen the scope and then you lose marks on your treatment. I think the revenue people who include stamp paper are always going to have that treatment issue, and I think you're just going to have firm in your mind and in your title page exactly what your story you're telling. So if you don't get the story right, you can be all over the place. So I think you're right, Aldo. We have to be very careful on the story we tell and explain why we're explaining the stamps or the stamp paper or both. So yeah, very good question. And I don't know if there is a 100% answer to that question just yet.
Yeah, Glenn, see, for example, I am pretty concerned when someone exhibits the fiscal postal, the 5 cents, mainly the condor 5 cent, the green one.
Yeah.
Because with the condor stamp, with the 5 cent, you have 5 printings. And in the 5th printing, you have at least 5 sub-printings, to say in some manner, okay? Because you have the first one that is the olive, the second one that is a yellow-green, the third one that is a different color. You have 5 printing at the end. And only the 5th one was used for postage purposes, for post office. No? You can follow me, that, okay?
Yeah,
Well,
I get.
how you will manage all of that material in a 5 or 8 frame exhibit when you have the platings, when you have the varieties of each plate, okay? You have the colors, you have the usage of the stamped papers, you have the mixed revenue paper with this content, not only of the 5 cent, but also the 5 cent violet, the 10 cent brown, and worst of all, when you have the high value, the 50 and 100 cents.
Yeah.
It's difficult, okay? So I am thinking right now, I have seen exhibits of the condor 5 cents, well, of the condors, like one of Marta Peredo, the one of Ana Maria Goldschmidt, the one of Patiño, that have 8 frames of condors only.
Yeah.
So how to manage them? And you know the stamped paper are bigger than the cover.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to, frankly, I would like to see it once you finish you prepare this, you move this selection of stamp into a single exhibit. But I think it's a big challenge to do this. Because I've been thinking right now, say, only talking about content. Now, what happened with the stamped paper? What happened with the documentary ones that also have a problem that have been used also to pay postage?
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Condo is a classic stamp, right? It's their first stamp and fiscal issue. It runs with some times. It was locally produced. There's 72 stamps. There's multiple printings. There's multiple colors. There's errors. There's forgeries. Just as traditional alone, I don't think you can cover it in 8 frames. So that's why all I'm doing is really just an introduction to the condors, and I don't even other than to say that it's been well studied, and I may always be penalized for it, but you're right, just the 5 centavos condo stamps you can do in 8 frames, I'm sure of it. But
no, not 5, not 8 frames, but 3 or 4 frames.
But you could, I mean, there's a lot into it, but you find it on just fiscal documents, and I mean, I look at Martha's, it's only 2, maybe 3 frames that she does with the condors, and she covers a lot of the platings, and of course she has whole sheets that have been fiscally used, so that they're very nice pieces as well. But I think it's hard to do condors 8 frames fiscally. And keep your story tight and balanced, because you know a lot more work's been done on the 5 centavo and hardly anything on the 500. You know, so it's yeah, I agree with you. it's a also, nice challenge. But
one last question: have you found the 500 centavos black 9 stars? I think it was 9 stars used fiscally?
No. Because there was only 8, was it? There wasn't that many printed. No, I haven't. I would love to see one fiscally, just to see one, let alone own one. Yes.
I heard some time ago that it was used also fiscally, but I will ask a friend of mine where he found that information, I will forward to you.
Yeah.
But it's extremely rare. The
Yeah,
500,000 rare.
And as I stated, the information that Stanley Gibbons provided was just totally wrong, you know. So you have to stick to American publications when it comes to that, because the British Empire has no idea. Even though Clive Ackerman was Brit, and he did specialize in South American and Central American revenue stamps. I mean, he had a huge collection, mainly of archive material. That was his big thing, was the archive material. So that's why I was glad to grab a fair chunk of his collection, because it was a good starting point.
Okay.
But I think that catalogue needs to be improved, and I don't know. I don't have time for it.
Congratulations again. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Manuel?
Well, Glenn, congratulations again for your presentation. And I think I am amazed that someone from Australia is just looking for Bolivian material, especially revenue material. I am collecting for more than 30 years revenue stamped papers and revenue stamp from Colombia. And I think I do have some knowledge about that. It's very complicated, and especially for a person who doesn't speak Spanish, because if you have to go into the regulation and the laws regarding the whole thing, is quite complicated if you cannot read the books or the laws regarding the issues and why they have to pay 20 centavos or 200 centavos or whatever. It's quite a challenge. So my congratulations for this effort, and I probably more people interested in revenues. One of the problems that we had in Colombia is I am the only one collecting this material, and well, on one hand, it's good because you can get material, excellent material for a reasonable price, because there are no competitors. But at the end, you had the problem because you are the only one around. So, my good luck for your. And I was looking into my library, but I couldn't find it. There is a small book that it was produced by Clive Ackerman. Probably you know. It's Collecting and Revenue Stamps. Have you seen this book?
Yeah, I have this book. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got it many years ago, but that was one of my.
So you're talking about this book?
Mm-hmm. No. That is from Bolivia, but I'm talking about a small one. It's more in general.
Yes.
It's the collecting and revenue stamps in general.
Yeah.
And he speaks about many issues, especially from United Kingdom and the whole Commonwealth. It's quite interesting.
I have an 8-frame photocopy of his exhibit for Latin American. So I will look up the Colombian and email it to you. I'll scan it and email it to you.
Well, it will be very nice. Thank you very much. The first big collection of revenue stamped paper was from Ecuador. And it was a guy from the United States. I forgot his name. And he was able to he bought a very large collection of revenue stamped paper from Ecuador, hundreds of papers, especially from the 17th century, very from the viceroys, a lot of this material. But I forgot. I had a photocopy of this collection. Very, very interesting. And he was the first one in presenting revenue stamped paper. It's quite a challenge because you had the problem of the treatment. And another thing is, I may say, the judges doesn't know very much about the whole history behind the revenue stamped paper of each country. Probably in one country, but from the other countries, they had no idea how difficult is the material and how to make the presentation. It's quite a challenge, very complicated, but you have to pursue it. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised, Glenn. So in that case, once again, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. And thanks everyone for being here today. Y el día de mañana.